I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today we are going to dye some roving. Specifically, wool of the Andes roving from Knit Picks. And this roving is 100% Peruvian Highland wool. My plan is to dye this fiber in a way we've done before. Actually, the length of this opened up is pretty darn good. Maybe I don't need to do a lot more besides just opening up the knot. Normally I try to do more back and forth to arrange the fiber in the pan. And here we definitely have some areas that are a couple layers thick. It's sort of wound a little bit like a skein, like in a little bit of a circle. You know what? Let's leave it like that. This was a really easy way to put the fiber in the pan, and it's going to be really easy to lift and flip, I think. And so, okay, we're going to leave it as so. Part of me is like, should I try to put a zip tie on it? But I think we're just going to roll with it, and eventually we'll pick it up and flip. Now, the plan is to take this fiber, we're going to dye it with some colors on the side. We'll have it pre-soaked, we'll dye it, let those colors set, and then we're going to flip it and dye the fiber with different colors on the second side. Now, this is a technique I do on yarn a lot. It can give some really beautiful effects, layered tonal, variegated at times, but the difference between dyeing an unspun roving and yarn is that because yarn has twist in it, that twist in the yarn means that when the dye is sort of sitting here, it can't move that far. Whereas the unspun roving is more of like a sponge, and so the colors are going to be able to spread further. So we'll see what happens. But that's part of the fun of filming these projects, is we don't always know what's going to happen. The other thing to remember with unspun fibers, especially, well, even superwash and unspun fibers, but especially because it's non-superwash, is that felting is a concern. And so I'm going to want to be very gentle as I press this fiber into water. I've added just 8 cups of water right now. I'm going to get 8 more. In general, I try to avoid manipulating the fiber too much when it is not just wet. I mean, I have manipulated fiber while it's wet, but I try to not manipulate the fibers too much when they're hot. So we'll see how this goes, especially without any kind of zip tie or handle on it. You can hear me debating, but we're gonna try and see. Maybe we'll let things cool off in the middle, which honestly, I think that makes sense. I think we're gonna have to dye aside, let everything cool off, and then dye the other side when things are at least cool enough that I can handle it with my hands, so I can sort of grab everything all at once. But what we're going to do now that we're in 16 cups of water with no acid is I'm going to let all this fiber soak overnight. And I kind of like the fact that rather than having like one layer, but it's all kind of compressed this way, that we have, I think, basically 2 layers of fiber. It's thicker, and I think that'll be fun. But anyway, I'm going to set this aside to soak, and I guess I'll see you tomorrow. Today we're going to play with 4 different colors across 2 brands. We have Paradise Fibers blue and green, but this green is really more of a teal than a true green. And then we have Dharma Acid Dyes yellow, and Brilliant Yellow, and Caribbean blue. Now everything is a 1% stock solution, which means we have 1 gram of dye dissolved in 100 milliliters of liquid. And so I'm going to want to be careful with the total amount of dyes we use, because too much dye on roving can be a bleeder and annoying. And so, yeah, I think that this will be really, really pretty, and I'm excited to see where we end up. Now, before we start heating anything up, let's add some acid. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tablespoons of white vinegar in our 16 cups of water. This is a little higher than But you can see that we have fiber sort of at the surface, but things are well floating in here. And so I'm going to go and take this over to the stove and start heating it across 2 burners before we bring over our pigment. Okay, on our first side, let's start with our green and yellow. And I'm gonna get, oh, I was gonna start with the yellow because I was like, if I started with the green, oh no, a little bit of yellow in here as I measure out about a little over 25 milliliters of our yellow. It doesn't need to be exact. I was gonna say that if I started with the green and then there was some residual green in here when I went to add the yellow, then it would shift the yellow very green very quickly. But this way, there being some residual yellow in here, when I want the green, as I rinse it out with just water, that's not a big deal. Oh dear, and I forgot that I did not tighten the lid all the way. I am a riot. Now, the Paradise Fibers Green I don't think is available anymore. There's only a couple of those acid dye pigments that are still available on their website. But I would say that Dharma's teal green is pretty close in color. I don't know if it's the same pigments or not. But this goes to show that there are so many different acid dye brands out there, whether they're ones that I've tried or you're using one that is relevant for your country. And so you may need to spend some time tweaking your proportions and recipes if you're trying to achieve very similar results to what I've done. But a lot of the overall techniques and things should still work. The only time I might be nervous about swapping pigments out is when terms of glazing conditions, which is not relevant to this video. But anyway, I'm going to fill each of these containers up to have about 300 milliliters of water. Okay, and you can see by these little splashes why sometimes if I'm diluting dyes, I prefer to have a lot more water in there at first because then things don't splash. But we are good. Now we just need our roving to heat up and then we can apply these dyes on. But actually, you know what? Let's go ahead. I know this is making the yellow very full. So I add 1 tablespoon of white vinegar in with the dyes, just for good measure. Why not? And just like that, we are hot. I have reduced the heat to low. We're not mega steamy yet, but that is fine. Okay, I'm gonna, oh man, very, very carefully, so nervous, bring over this yellow. And I'm gonna add this here. Actually, you know what? I was gonna do sort of like a 1, 2, 3, 4 thing, but you know what? We can do this half here. We can be more creative with the placement on the next layer, which is not saying that this is uncreative the way that I've poured this on. That's not what I mean at all. It just means that I initially poured the color over a bigger area. Now, because you can see the color is sort of immediately sinking in, and you can see how teal this color is. And yes, things are going to travel down and spread between them. But sometimes, you know, we're not like getting an even like float of the color because I had to like pour it on. There probably are other ways we could do it, but this is also going to add some dimension in here that is going to be gorgeous when spun. I'm adding a little bit of water into each cup just to rinse things out. But what's amazing to me is like the color really seems to be sinking down towards the bottom. We don't know what's happening on the reverse side yet. I'm gonna set a timer for 15 minutes and then we'll see where things are, because I expect things may look very different from how they do right now. It has been 15 minutes and okay, there is a lot of color left in there. Oh boy, if I move that, there is Is there as much of, yeah, there's a lot of color over there too. Okay. We are gonna need to let this sit for a bit. Part of me was like, oh, I can turn off the heat at this point, blah, blah, blah. There's so much pigment. It does feel like things have evened out a bit, but I know a lot of the color has also sunk down. I'm gonna turn up the heat a little bit to raise the temperature, and we'll let this go another 15 minutes. Okay, we have lots of steam on the surface here. There's some air trapped under there. All right, our yellow seems to have cleared. What about our green? I still see a lot of pigment over there. I don't know if it's just the edges, because in the middle I'm not seeing color. So I know I'm helping things now, but that's just mainly because I'm gonna want to be able to shift things over, you know? So what I'm gonna do to sort of help is I'm gonna add a tablespoon of vinegar onto each edge where we seem to be having the dye sort of stick. And I'm also at this point gonna turn off the heat, which I know seems a little bit counterintuitive, but I love, yeah, see there's not really color there. There's minimal at those corners, but it's just at those edges where I see it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna let this cool off here on the stove until I can comfortably handle it. And then at that point, we can flip the roving to dye the other side. It's just we're gonna have to be very patient. It's been about an hour, and I think we've finally cooled off enough that I feel like I can attempt to flip the fiber. Yeah, we are much more like warm. Okay, and it looks like that color has absorbed. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna lift the yarn and flip it over and try to not agitate things too much. We're definitely seeing, at least with the green, this sort of hot spot around where the burner is located, where the temperature is greater. And without getting like some kind of, I'm gonna turn the heat back on and heat things up. Without getting some kind of IR camera or doing a double boiler where the heat would be more even. Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly how to avoid it, but the color difference from the top and the bottom is not that extreme. It might be more extreme later, but I don't really think so. Okay, let's go ahead and prep the dyes for this second side. We have a tiny bit of some purple left in here from another project. I'm not gonna worry about that because inherently, if I was gonna mix this color from a cyan, we'd have a little bit of some pink. And oh man, I still have a tiny bit left, but I have just over 25 milliliters. That is really exciting. I did not expect that to come out so close. Okay, now I'm gonna get my Caribbean blue. Again, there's a little bit of that other blue in here. Not a big deal. 25 milliliters. These two colors are a lot closer than our green and yellow were. And I'm definitely gonna need to think about how I want to pour these on, because I kind of want to try to preserve some of the green and yellow if I can, but I also want to carry through with our experiment. So yeah, we're gonna have some fun. Now I'm gonna fill both of these up so we have about 300 milliliters of water in each one. Okay, and we're also gonna add a tablespoon of white vinegar in each. And let's go back to the roving. This type of concentration of color around where the heat source is because I'm trying to see how much of a difference I feel. That's something that I only really observe on non-superwash yarn. Okay, now I have to think about how I want to do this. Because I was considering just sort of going over the top, but I think I'm going to do this and sort of stick with my original plan to do sort of like this variegated layer. And let it be a little bit open, you know, because maybe we'll keep some of the yellows, maybe not. This is our deeper blue, because I also thought it would be fun to just like layer the color kind of like this all over the whole thing with both colors. And I think that that could be something that would be really fun and pretty. And so almost like a wide version of scribble dyeing. Not entirely scribble dyeing, although scribble dyeing on roving could also be kind of fun. I'm gonna put that one back there. This one also back there. Yeah, I'm very curious. I think the blend of, it's interesting that this is almost turning like an army green, which isn't quite what I would have expected. But I think it's still like really, really beautiful. And I'm gonna have to be patient. It's really hard to not just like move everything around and see what's gonna happen. So, I mean, this is the area where we were gonna have the most contrast from what we added on top. But things are looking way bluer down there. And so I'm curious, like if we're gonna feel a color difference between the top and bottom or not. But I think I'm gonna set a timer for, let's wait 20 minutes, then check back in. Okay, here we are, 20 minutes later. I'm so curious. Ooh, that's good looking. Okay, I'm seeing some amounts of, okay, there's a fair amount more blue over there, but this is looking pretty. It's looking very blended. Again, if this was a superwash yarn or roving, I think we would see less of the color spread. But I'm going to turn the heat back down to low. And then once again, I'm just going to grab some acid and add it towards these edges, even though I think that one is probably fine. And I'm going to let it heat another 15 minutes, just because that's a nice round number. Okay, let's see how we're doing. Alright, I see some blue, but mostly everything appears to be in the fiber. I'm going to turn off the heat and let this cool. I did not keep track of how long I let things cool in between like the first layer and before I flipped it. I feel like it was at least an hour. And now I know, and I can tell you that we're going to be waiting a while before I remove this to wash it. So I'll see you way later this evening. It is the next morning, and I'm preparing to wash the roving. I'm filling up my basin with water, and I'm going to add some soap into it. Not a lot, but I'm going to work that soap through the water before we go and grab our roving. But I realized this is going to be a bit of an awkward angle for a flip, but I do want to flip it. Ooh, before washing it. And yeah, it does look like that deep blue went all the way through, at least down at this end. Oh, this is pretty. We have lots of little variation in here. A lot of depth and dimension. More than just as I plop that into there. There's no color left in our dye bath that I can see, which is good. But I like this level of dimension in here. Because I think that it's like smooth color transitions. It's still gonna have a lot of dimension, obviously, when you spin it. but I really like this effect. Now, flipping the fiber is nerve-wracking for me. And so I may prefer techniques where I don't need to do that. I may prefer adding more water or adding more colors and doing it that way, because the colors did move through the other side pretty well. But let me refill this up. Now, we are not seeing any color bleeding in here, which is phenomenal. And I am going to continue to be very, very careful. Oh, this is gorgeous with our fiber. But if you did see some light amounts of bleeding, then what I would recommend would be to, especially if you're going to spin it yourself, sometimes it'd be to wash it heavier after you're setting your twist. But at this stage, I'm going to very carefully add the fiber into my spin dryer to remove excess liquid and hang it up to dry. These colors are phenomenal! Let me arrange this a little bit better. Here we go. I feel like we have a little bit more green on the skein to the left. Is it a skein? On the fiber to the left. Than we do on the one on the right. It is gorgeous, all gorgeous. There is, I think, what I would consider to be some slight surface felting. Probably because of how I moved the fiber when it was hot. But you can see, it does it pulls apart and fluffs very easily. And I believe it would also draft incredibly easily. Like if I'm here at the end, let me fluff, and we can draft. And so I think, it isn't like the best ever, but it is not a felted mess. There was one time I had a friend send me fiber to blind as I'm, just fluffing this. I had a friend send me some fiber blind for me to open on stream and to try to spin, and it was felted to the point where I could not fluff or separate the fibers at all. And so I think that, as you play around with fiber, some fiber is going to be grippier. And I think I dyed some other fiber this week. And so I think that the results of this little surface felting is probably because I moved it while hot, which I don't normally do. Okay, so you can see I fluffed the fiber on the left, not the right. I typically try to fluff the fiber anyway, just because I think it looks better. Sometimes there's some twist or it's a little more compressed from the drying process. So I'm going to fluff the fiber on the right. And there we go. Beautiful, beautiful fiber. The colors in here are so beautiful. I love this random effect. I love that some of these color sections are really short in that it'll give, they'll be longer once it's drafted, but they should give short color changes in what's spun. Of course, there's so many ways to spin fiber, but it just makes me really, really happy. And I am really excited that we have so much color variation in here. I would add that I think my preference would be to not flip the fiber. That made me nervous. I think that it could be really, really cool to do something like we did today, but instead of flipping the fiber and adding other colors on the other side, we don't flip it. We apply color, let that set, and then apply more color, knowing that the colors are gonna spread through the fiber pretty well. And so, yeah, I think that is something that I want to write down, Editing Rebecca, and try soon, because I think that there is potential there to still get beautiful, stunning variation without having to manipulate hot fiber, warm fiber, or letting the project take 2 days because I let it cool to completely room temperature before moving it. But now I'm just gonna crochet up the braids. So pretty. As we admire these beautiful colors, I want to take this opportunity to give a huge shout out and thank you to the ChemKnits Fiber patrons, including Jessica Parco, Bernadette Crum, Don Jans, Tamara Svanas, Space Bread, and the other names you see on the screen right now. Patreon is a great way that you can support the ChemKnits tutorials content directly. And there are a lot of fun perks, including these shout outs that you just heard and saw. And depending on the level, access to a behind the scenes live stream every month, advance notice of shop restocks, and early access to the newest episode of Dyepot PS. You can learn more at patreon.com/ChemKnits. Patrons, thank you so much for all of your support. One thing I don't think I talk about often enough when it comes to roving is that there are differences between the different 100-gram parts of fiber. I'm blanking on like the word that I should use. There are some color differences. There might be some pattern differences. Just like with hand-dyed yarn, you don't really have a dye lot for two skeins, even if they were dyed the exact same way in the same pan. When it comes to spinning fiber, these differences can become amplified, especially depending on how you choose to spin it. Now, as a more novice spinner, I don't always have the most consistency with my spinning, but there are certainly master spinners out there who could create yarns that feel very similar out of this fiber. But yeah, there's also, if two different customers end up with this fiber, they can also create two yarns that look completely different from one another. And that's the fun thing with playing around with dyeing unspun fiber and spinning your own yarn. It's just another layer of control and play that you have when it comes to color and yarn that goes beyond just dyeing already spun yarn. And I just think that that is so much fun. Please subscribe and turn on notifications so that way you never miss the next video. I don't dye roving often enough, but I'm hoping to do more. And whenever it is in my shop, it usually doesn't stay there very long. But you can always head over to the ChemKnits Creations Etsy shop to see if I have any roving that is ready to ship there. I have had requests to do like a mystery pre-order for roving, and I just don't think I have the confidence to scale up roving dyeing in the way I do other yarns. And so I think it would be hard for me to dye 20 braids of this roving just because of the setup and everything that I have. I'm not saying never, but at this point it's still pretty unlikely. But anyway, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and thank you so much for watching.